Welcome to Unit Radio.
For tuning in here at 8 p.m. We are live on CHMR, and my name is Brad Stevens. Welcome to Unit Radio. That's right, I got a radio moniker, and we're here this evening with the ineffable Kyle King.
Hey, Brad. How's it going?
Thank you for joining us in studio here this evening, Kyle.
My pleasure.
Of course, Kyle's got a busy evening coming up. Of course, he's going to stop in for a little bit. Kyle is going to be performing a little bit later at Trapper John's.
Yep.
That'll be at 9 p.m. We're starting it off with, what's the moniker down there?
Jokes at John's. Is
Jokes
that what you
at
mean?
John's.
Yes.
All right, so we got Jokes at John's a little bit later. That's going to be fun. So thank you, of course, for stopping in. Man, it's been a while, actually, really.
Yeah, I ran into you at a comedy show, I think, earlier this summer, and that was the first time in a few years for sure.
I was going to say, I don't think actually I've seen you. I might have bumped into you maybe just in passing, but yeah, that's the first time we actually spoke, and yeah, years, man, it was awesome. Yeah. Kyle and I know each other from years ago. We're both alumni of Memorial University.
That we are.
And we're making a triumphant return. Kyle is stepping into the guest host, Mike 2, second Mike this evening. So I want to thank Kyle for coming down. But we knew each other from back in residence, so we lived in residence. I don't even know, is Curtis House still open right now?
I hope so. I mean, we had a bit of a legacy when we were there.
We did. But you guys lived there for a couple of years after I did, even.
I did 3 years.
Okay,
yep.
3 years.
Yep.
Because, actually, I don't know if you know this, but I guess the house opened in, 67?
I believe so, yes.
Am I right in saying that? We had the 40th anniversary when we were there? Yeah. So there was actually this past week, I believe, they had a first 5-year reunion. So people who lived there from 67 until 72.
Cool.
And I guess at that point I didn't realize it was an all female house.
Yeah, the unicorns, wasn't it?
They were the unicorns before they were the cuties. They were the unicorns. I think you're right. Yeah. So the unicorns came in, and they actually there was a whole ton of I guess what are they now? They'd have to be 70, 80?
Yeah.
If you were,
if you were 50, I mean, you were 18, so you've got to be pushing 70.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, if you came in 67, you would have been about 16 or 17. Absolutely. Oh, my God, you got to be pushing your 60s or 70s. So, yeah, they got together and they organized a reunion. I wonder if I can pull up any photos of a Curtis House reunion. My gosh. But they had the house all decorated. I'm pretty sure they were allowed in. I don't know if people still live there. I have no idea.
Just thinking back, I know Barnes was fixed up a couple of times. I think while I was living there, actually, they trashed that place regularly.
Now for us, we had the old.
That's what I was gonna say. Curtis was built, and we had the 40-year reunion party, and they never touched it. And I think it was like, we'll do it next year sort of thing. And then they fixed Barnes up, and then it was like, we'll do it actually next year. I think they did do it at some point, but I haven't been back.
If I'm not mistaken, I think the building itself actually got a total rehaul on the inside. But it was, for that building to get 40 years in, and for us to still have what we refer to as the movable beds.
Yeah.
So for anybody of like the pre-generation of like before you had the one stationary set in your residence room, and that's the way that your room was. We had a room that was like our own little Lego set that you could just organize however you wanted. So if you wanted to, say, stack your beds on top of one another to open up the room for more traffic, that was the thing you could do.
I can't remember who it was, but two guys actually like pushed their beds into the middle to see, like they wanted to walk around the walls. It didn't work, but they were like, let's try it.
I mean, hey, listen, this is what university is all about, experimentation. It's great, yeah. I remember two guys actually put their mattresses and beds, I think, on top of the cabinets over the door.
Yes.
So there was just nothing there. And it was just like, I think they turned the desk sideways and...
Was it Corey and Andrew that had the blanket fort?
They did.
That was awesome.
Man, what a great time. And I think we really lived in a golden era of residence, our internet was too terrible for us to spend too much time on it.
It was borderline unusable at times, but
mostly unusable.
I hope it's better now.
It's got to be a little bit better. And I think, they've built the new residences. So I'm thinking if I were to take a guess, I would say they probably recycled a few of the modems, maybe, for the new residents.
Probably.
Do you think they did an overhaul? It's tough to say because that would be a very expensive overhaul. It's a huge residence.
Yep.
It's a lot of residents to cover, and you need way more. You need way more. What am I talking about? Modems? Do they still use modems, or am I?
I mean, routers would probably be a term, but I mean, if you say a modem, most people know what you mean.
Well, but yeah, I would assume so. When I'm thinking of modems, I'm thinking of the ones that make the noise.
Yep.
The dial-up noise. Yeah. No, I mean, that's fair. And I mean, to really think about it, I can even date myself even more on it with residents. When I talk about ResNet when we first moved in, or Stu, as it were.
I forgot we called it ResNet.
Remember ResNet? Yeah. We realized it was actually everywhere on campus and it wasn't just us.
Yeah.
And we had ResNet. You would go on MSN Messenger for you children out there, because actually, literally the children that are alive right now and going to first year university were born in, what, 2000? 2001?
That sounds...
2000? Yeah, but
yeah,
like
2000.
99, 2000 probably,
Yeah.
if you're about 17 or 18.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that, yeah, because... Yeah, it's 2017, right? Math. So, I mean, if you look at it that way, honestly, like, we came from a generation where I can remember the only evolution in, like, technologically that I remember was going from, like, ICQ to MSN to AOL Messenger. But I remember us all being on MSN and watching everybody get kicked off on your hallway one by one. So if I would go all the way down the hall, it would be, you'd have Corey and Andrew would be gone, and they'd disappear from my online list. You and Aiden, gone. Julie, gone. Everybody would just start disappearing, and then I would know my internet was about to go. So torrenting was impossible. Not that we would ever torrent, or not that anybody would or should ever torrent.
Highly unethical. Nobody would do that.
You wouldn't steal a car, would you?
You wouldn't download a car.
Would you download a car?
You can do that nowadays. That's the amazing thing. They did not have the foresight when they had that ad campaign.
It's funny, actually. A guy that we lived in residence with, Drew Brown, he actually wrote a line recently talking about downloading a car, and he said, of course you would download a car. We would all download cars. Everyone would download a car.
It's funny. I'm actually trying to buy a car now. I've got actually a tentative deal set up with Aiden and his wife.
Nice.
They're selling their 5-year-old car, but
I hear you had muffler trouble.
Yes.
Sorry.
So 2 days ago, I started test driving stuff. You know, I've got a bunch of cars that I kind of like to varying degrees. And today, I was leaving my girlfriend's place, and I was heading on the Outer Ring Road. And I just heard this metallic scraping sound. I'm like, what is that? Pulled into a parking lot. And the best part is, like, my car got loud, and I was like, it's probably part of the exhaust. And as I'm driving down, the Confederation Building hill, the hill there.
I call it the Crosstown Arterial, but that's because I'm from Miranda Bay. But I know what you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah,
you know.
So I'm heading down there, and there's this guy walking. He's probably, like, 300-400 feet ahead of me, and suddenly he just whips his head around and looks. And as I drive past him, he's just staring at me. And I don't embarrass easily, but I felt like I was bearing my soul to a hostile crowd there.
It's okay, man. It's, you know what? Unfortunately, like, I don't know why you're getting so judged out there. I don't know why you're experiencing that, unfortunately. But I'm sorry.
Hate, I guess.
That's terrible. You know, and you know what? That's all I hear from anybody. It was the number one reason for years that I stayed away from having a vehicle.
Yep.
Because all that anybody in this city has ever told me is owning a vehicle is basically like driving in a third world country. There are no rules of the road, regardless. I haven't seen a blinker since I started. I'm about, you know, what are we looking at? This is the 27th. I'm 2 days shy of 1 year of owning a vehicle in this city. And it has been amazing because I've gotten to see so much. It's a nightmare.
You want to know what's worse? I used to bike in St. John's.
Okay.
I had 100% true story, not exaggerating at all. I was on a work term at Nalcor, and like on my lunch break, which I took at like 2 o'clock because I was like, I'm gonna go down to bulk burn. It's student day, you know. I'm gonna save my 10% on my jubes or whatever. And you can do 70 on a bike going down that hill easily.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's nothing on the road. I'm on the like inside lane, and I hear aggressive honking behind me. Like, that's the only way I can think to describe it. And so I look over my shoulder, and it is this massive truck just gaining ground on me, and I've got to be doing 70. Like, I know it. And so I'm like, this guy is going to run me over if I don't get out of the way.
Like you're
so
done.
I just whip out into the other lane, and before I had straightened my bike up, the guy was past me. Yeah.
Wow.
That was like one-off story. I had a guy blow an air horn, like no scrub style, hanging out the passenger side of his buddy's ride.
Okay, dude. Because, like, honestly, I was going to say, like, in general, in my experience, just seeing bikers, this is not a friendly bicycle city at all. Nobody's friendly to bikers here, and I don't understand why, but that's the worst I've ever heard. I've never heard of someone getting air horned.
On Freshwater Road, like, across from, what is it, the That little strip mall with like Mary Brown's and everything.
Gotcha. Yeah, right there by Mana and then Scream Pita.
Yeah, exactly, right there. Just before the 24-hour convenience store there. Stockwoods. I was like Scampers. I'm like, no, that's not Scampers. But yeah, the sidewalk was abysmal. And, I mean, you're not supposed to ride your bike on the sidewalk, but self-preservation beats the law any day.
Listen, and who's going to ticket you, you know? Come on.
Yeah.
That's fine, really. And any cop should really be sympathetic to that, honestly. That's not that should in no way... Like, I personally would avoid having to get on, like, Freshwater or Kemet Road at all on a bicycle.
For sure.
I did see a guy, actually. He was coming underneath that overpass area, like, where you would instead go onto Columbus, but instead you keep going down Kemet.
Yep.
So he, and he was riding a bike, and he was riding right along... the corner there where the merge happens, where people don't know that it's not a yield and that you just can continue to drive in the lane.
Yep.
And that that you don't have to stop in traffic. This guy was literally riding on the dotted line in between that lane and the actual lane of traffic flowing through. Yep. It was honestly I was having a panic attack watching it. It was crazy. I've never seen anything like it. It was outrageous trying to follow this man, literally risking what I felt to be his very livelihood, like his very life, in one of the most dangerous places in St. John's, perhaps even Canada. Because truly, I believe if you can drive in Newfoundland, St. John's in particular, you can drive anywhere.
Well, I've met a few people over the past probably 5 or 6 years who, one guy in particular comes to mind. He's from the Northwest Territories, I believe. And he was terrified when he started driving in St. John's. He thought the rules of the road were different because you've got people yielding so that people can make a left-hand turn across 4 lanes of traffic.
Yeah. Everybody's helping each other out, though.
Oh yeah, you're helping each other out until somebody, dies, basically.
Have you also noticed, I know people complain about four-way stops, and then one complaint is everybody says, nobody knows how to use a four-way stop, and that's fine. But you know what it really is, and I've started to figure it out. The thing that everybody's doing wrong in a four-way stop in this city, it's so simple, too. So say you pull up to the four-way stop, you're rolling on up, and you come to a designated stop, and you see another car approaching, but that car is still approaching. Will you just go on through?
I would cautiously proceed.
See? This city has taught us all to cautiously proceed, Kyle. Honestly. And everybody in this city is a cautious procedure. I am too.
Yep.
Because I don't trust that
all.
other person is even going to recognize that is even a stop sign.
Yep.
Let alone a four-way stop.
I've had people, more or less 3 people come to a complete stop at the same time. And one time, I was one of them. And so I waved, got everybody's attention and was like, you, go now. And then, okay, you go now, and I'll go now. And, somebody else came from the 4th direction, and he just tried to inject himself.
Oh, no.
And I was like, no, you stay there, buddy.
No, listen, and once if you can get the perfect circle going, there is always going to be that one guy out of nowhere who's going to come on through. He's going to make his own way.
Break on through to the other side.
It's the people who decide, when they see the guy directly across from them who's already making a right, and they'll just think, I'm making a right too. It's no problem. We're not even interacting with each other. No, you don't do it, because then everything is messed up and nobody knows who to go next. See, this is what I'm saying. This is what I want to call, and this is a problem. We just had an election in this city, and these are the kind of issues that I want tackled on a municipal level, to be completely honest.
I'm curious. Do you think we need more or less roundabouts?
I'm going to talk about roundabouts. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with you to talk about roundabouts here with Kyle King on Unit Radio. My name is Brad Stevens. Stick around. Welcome back to Unit Radio. This is Brad Stevens here, and I'm still here in studio with what did I use last time? I'll go with Lovable this time. The lovable Kyle King.
Oh, thank you.
Comedian extraordinaire, human being extraordinaire. Thank you to Kyle for being here.
My pleasure.
We were just talking
about roundabouts.
We were gonna get into roundabouts. We had to go, of course, to a word there from our sponsors / ads / PSAs, etc. And of course, I can't keep you here for much longer because again, you do have a show a little later. We got Jokes at John's down at Trapper John's tonight at 9 p.m. That's 9 p.m. at Trapper John's. Go check out Kyle King and some other great local comedians. Lots of great talent. Roundabouts, honestly, Kyle, I love them. And I think, honestly, it's the way of the future. Now, I had never driven in a roundabout until I used the two very basic ones that our city has. So there's I guess maybe there's another one that I don't know about, but there's Paradise and the Airport.
Yes. There's one in Kenmount Terrace as well.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah, and there was one downtown. I can't remember what street it was on, but it wasn't done super well.
Okay.
A lot of people just like, nothing's coming. I'll just drive on the wrong side of the road because it's quicker.
Because it's fine. Yeah. Because
Yeah.
the house I want to go to is right there.
Yeah.
I mean, in a way, like in a weird sort of way, a lot of Georgetown is kind of set up in a sort of roundaboutish way. Like, especially if you're pulling into Georgetown, you kind of are, you're guided by the roads themselves.
Yeah.
Now, they do have one actually now, and I don't know if you've driven there recently, and I guess this is a public service announcement to anybody in the city here who's going to be driving down by the foot of Signal Hill area, but they've actually got a pilot project on the go down there now. So when you would drive down, normally you drive towards Signal Hill, you go past where the hotel is, and there's a fork in the road where you would take the right and go down the hill and head into Signal Hill.
That intersection,
okay. Yes, that intersection it's a real all right intersection.
Boo.
Like if Rollins Cross is steaming garbage, then that's on a scale of like great to steaming garbage, then that's okay. So what they actually did with that one is they turned it into a forced roundabout. So when you enter, you have to go to the right. And there is actually, when you get to the bottom of that sort of hill where there was the 7-way stop, which is again another nightmare itself. They just put a thing in the middle so nobody can drive directly through, and everybody is guided through on constantly moving lanes.
That makes so much sense because there's one lane, I believe, where it's not a stop. There's one lane, I think, where it's a yield. And then there's I can't see a couple of the other lanes from where I'm actually stopped here now. I mean, I've never seen an accident there, and I used to see a girl who was living in that area, so I was still no accident today. That's kind of impressive, honestly.
It really is, honestly, amazing. I've been in the area, say walking around a lot, and say I worked in the area as well, and I've it's one of those places where, other than again Rollins Cross, there are more blared horns on a daily basis. The ratio is just out of proportion. It's nuts, and I can't believe that there honestly aren't more dangerous accidents. And I mean, the biggest argument, this is why, aside from the fact that when I used a roundabout, it's the most intuitive thing ever because you just don't stop.
Yeah.
And if you're in the wrong lane, it's fine because you will go get in the right lane eventually because you're going in a circle.
Every lane is right, Brad.
There's no wrong way to go anymore, and that's why I like it. But the number one reason is, and I hate to sound like a mother and hen here, but it's for safety's sake. Honestly,
yes, it is safer, but you also it's faster. I think it was MythBusters way back in the day did this test, and they wanted to see if roundabouts allowed more traffic through than a 4-way stop, and so, me being science-minded, their hypothesis was that it did, and they basically said that if it comes up from their small-scale experiment that, everybody driving in the experiment was used to, 4-way stops and intersections and not used to roundabouts. And they still saw a 30% increase in traffic flow through that.
I saw the numbers here. It's nuts. So they did, what was the test there from MythBusters apparently was in 2 15-minute intervals. The 4-way stop only moved 385 cars, whereas a roundabout moved 460 cars. And that's in 15 minutes.
Yeah. They were allowed to practice for, I think, 10 or... Okay. Maybe it was a half hour. But
right, so you are talking people, this is everybody's using a... But you have to understand, this is an optimal 4-way stop speed. So, this is, everybody is actually going when they need to go.
Yes.
There are no delays. There's none of that awkward moment of, no, you, no, you.
So
everybody knows the flow of
traffic flow is only going to improve in St. John's, because you get this, am I going? Are you going? Oh, we're all going! Roundabouts!
There is no way. I will quit this show if you can find me one 4-way stop in St. John's that gets even 300 cars through in 15 minutes. Are you joking me? There's no way. There's actually intersections with lights that don't get 380 cars through in 15 minutes. That's insane. Yep. I can't believe that. But to get 460 is such an improvement. To me, it's always, I guess, and maybe, again, safety's sake, I always think about that, but I always think about the concept that the side swipe of a vehicle in an accident is way less dangerous than a full-on, like T-bone collision.
Yes.
Absolutely.
One interesting thing, like vehicle pedestrian accidents. I found this out a couple years ago. Do you know how pedestrians get injured from those accidents?
How?
People driving, they freak out. They go, "Oh, I just hit a guy." They stomp on the brakes, and the guy on the hood falls off the car and smacks their head off the pavement, or like breaks a bone. Like landing on the car, like, oh, that kind of sucks. But it's getting thrown off the vehicle and landing on the road. That's what actually hurts you.
Oh my God, I never considered that. That's so true.
Yeah, so if you ever run someone over, just be calm.
just let them ride it out. It's fine. Come to a controlled stop. You'll be okay.
Hello there, sir. Would you like to get off of my hood now, please?
That does make a lot of sense, actually. Yeah, which again comes right back to the seatbelt thing. I was reading earlier. This is something wild. I really hope. I'm really hoping Tim Hortons isn't the sponsor of the channel or anything, because I'm about to throw Tim Horton under the bus here. So I'm reading about Tim Horton earlier. Tim Horton, the person. Okay. So Tim Horton in 1964 opened, of course, the first Tim Horton restaurant in Hamilton, Ontario.
Shocking.
Amazing. Yeah, I know. That's but this was during, I think maybe during, but definitely like in the later years of his career as a prolific hockey player, and he was still playing, but he owned coffee shops. So 10 years later, Tim Horton was killed in an accident.
I did not know that.
It was a car accident. Yeah, I didn't know this either. So it was February 74, G, E minor, C, D. And he was... he left a hockey game that he played that night where he had gotten ejected, I guess, from the third period, and wasn't able to play. But he still got one of the 3 stars of the game that night because he was a miracle man, apparently. So he after this feat of greatness, I guess, or whatever, he decided he was gonna try to go for a drive to Buffalo, New York, because I guess he had a game there. But he's in Toronto, so he apparently leaves, but he's been drinking. So his teammates try to stop him, and they tell him that's bad and don't do that, and you could get hurt, and it's against the law. Or I don't know if it was against the law then, but it's just terrible and immoral. But so he does that, and they had a report from the OPP of him apparently speeding, and they tried to catch him, and they couldn't catch him. And he hit an embankment, and he got thrown like 50 meters from his vehicle.
Wow.
Yeah, that Tim Horton, that was the story of Tim Horton. They found him with a half of 40 of vodka, driving over the Canadian-American border to play hockey.
Did he have a beaver in the trunk?
Honestly, I have no idea. I feel like, honestly, I guess in a weird way, I had no idea that this was like a Canadian icon to me. Nobody talks about Tim Horton, and Tim Horton is such a household name. But I knew nothing of Tim Horton until about half an hour before the show tonight.
I'm not sure if this is going to date me a little bit, but I feel like there should be a Canadian heritage moment for Tim Horton's death.
Honestly, I really do. I don't know. I feel like that's one of those that they're really trying to glaze over. I feel like that's been intentionally omitted. Honestly, I did not feel very good, and I like Tim Hortons. Tim Hortons is fine. It's it's part of our heritage. When I was in Ireland and I saw Tim Hortons, I shed a little tear and I ate one of their terrible knockoff Timbit-ish things. It was awful. But I never knew anything about this, and this all came up to me earlier in a Wikipedia search where I'm trying to learn more, I guess, about Canada and trying to find little factoids to talk about on the show. And of course, I get into this Wikipedia hole and I start reading about Tim Horton, and it turns out Tim Horton was a terrible, godless man, allegedly, maybe. So I don't know. I'm sorry if I'm ruining your view of Tim Horton.
No, I mean I knew he was a hockey player. I knew there was a restaurant chain, if we're calling that's named after him, but that's about it.
Well, I guess at that point, he owned apparently a chain of 40 restaurants, which I guess then by association actually went to his widow. And somebody then came and offered her $1 million and gave her $1 million in 1974 to buy those 40 restaurants. And with that, I guess, that became what we now know as Tim Hortons. I don't know if at that point then it went into the hands of somebody else and became what we know it to be today. But that's that's who Tim Horton was.
Cool.
I don't know if you knew that.
I had no idea, honestly.
Again, I don't know. Sorry if I'm ruining it for you, but that was a wild realization for me earlier. Tim Horton. Yeah.
You said you went to, was it Ireland?
I did. Yeah, years ago.
What was that about?
It was a school trip years ago. I went. That's probably 11 years ago now. I went to Ireland.
Oh man.
Oh god, it was so weird.
Like high school era.
It was okay. So it was my grade 12 graduating trip. So we had a music program where we saved money and we fundraised and we went to Ireland. So I got my report card and I got on a plane and I went to Ireland. And you know when you go on a school trip and there's like the threat of like, you're a student, you're representing the school,
yep.
and if you do anything wrong, we're going to tell your parents and they're going to fly you home on your dime. It's going to cost you money and they're going to put you in a work camp. And but like, and that didn't matter at all because we weren't students anymore. So like nothing, they were like saying all of this to us and we were nodding and smiling. But like nothing actually mattered because we weren't students anymore. So we went to Ireland. Now, to be honest with you, we were good. And that's the truth. Like years later, I can honestly admit, like I went to Ireland and I had 1 pint of Guinness when I was in Ireland with a burger at a bar in Dublin.
Scandalous.
On a school trip, right? And I don't even know. Like maybe there was somebody else that was there that was like sneaking, flats of beer or bottles of liquor to bed with them, but. I don't see where in the time anybody would have been drinking because we actually spent, honestly, it felt like 8 to 10 hours a day on a bus listening to a guy named Tig.
Tig? Yeah,
like Tidgh, I think.
How did he sneak a D into that name?
I don't know, man. Honestly, Gaelic is wild. Gaelic is just, it's an intense language. And I don't know actually really who speaks it there, but like it is. There was nothing I could relate it to. I didn't have any sort of frame of reference, and most of the signs, especially where I was in the Republic of Ireland, all have some level of Gaelic on them.
Okay. In
the same way that you flip the cereal box over here and it's in French or whatever. Le Dorito. So like
Flacon de Mai.
Exactly, yeah. So I mean, but Ireland was cool. Ireland was all right. As one of my lesser vacations, unfortunately, it was cool, but it was a school trip. You went on vacation recently, actually, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah.
So that song that you had playing at the beginning of this segment, that was by a ska band called Streetlight Manifesto. Myself and my good friend from high school, like still my good friend, Aiden. Brad knows him.
Absolutely. Shout out there to Aiden. I hope Aiden's listening in Radioland. He's got nothing to do on this fine Thursday night.
He's working on his PhD. I'm sure he has lots of better things to do than listen to you and me banter about him.
Oh, yeah.
But, he got me into Streetlight Manifesto more or less back in the day. And
very cool.
My favorite album by them came out 10 years ago. It was... I can't remember if it was during the end of our first year or the beginning of our second year. Either way... It was with me for the rest of university, and I still listen to it regularly.
We're looking at was it Somewhere Into the Between?
Somewhere in the Between, yep.
Cool, yeah. It says here, November 07. So I guess that would have probably been our second year.
Yep.
Fall of second year.
Yep.
Cool.
So, yeah, they...
we're the same age, too. This is weird, yeah. This is like an old buddy of mine. I don't know if anybody knew this. Kyle King, everybody. Glad to have him here. Sorry, go ahead.
It's okay. But, yeah, so... They announced on Facebook, like, January, February, like, oh, man, we just realized this album's 10 years old. We've got to do something to celebrate. We'll, like, check back in a couple hours. We'll have something figured out. And, like, I forgot about it because it was, like, the middle of the night. And I'm just going through Facebook, a couple days later. And they're like, Somewhere in the Between, 10-year anniversary tour. And I was like, this sounds great because...
Gotta go. Yeah, why not?
They had a date in Toronto. And I have so many friends from high school and university that live in Toronto now. And most of them love Streetlight Manifesto because we all sort of discovered it around the same time, and yeah. I
mean, really, in that way, it's kind of a perfect. Yeah, I mean, any trip is making a good excuse to try to combine wanting to see something or wanting to visit somebody, or you got the best of all worlds there. And actually, it's a band I remember hearing about through you. Like Kyle and I, before we got recording here, we were kind of talking about we wanted to pick a song to start off with, and I said, most of the ska music that I listen to was because of you guys. There was only one ska band that I ever listened to before I ever met you, and I think it was Five Iron Frenzy.
Oh, yeah. They've got a couple good songs, but I didn't realize this. Like, maybe this is just shows off how naive I was. Maybe maybe still am.
That's okay,
but
me too.
They're like a Christian ska band, and like a lot of their lyrics are like, there's one song where they talk about and Judas was a hypocrite, something, and can you hear the bells are ringing far, far away? And I'm just like,
Yeah.
Just way over my head. I was like, man, these guys really they kind of bash on that Judas character, huh?
Who's this Judas guy? Is this some sort of allegory or something I'm not getting? Like, I'm not getting the reference. I honestly, I gotta plead ignorant to it too.
Yep.
I honestly didn't know that because they talk a lot about him.
Yep.
I didn't know it was capital H, him. I really didn't. I truly, honestly didn't dawn on me. And it's just, maybe it's the subject matter of the music. Maybe it's the music itself. Like, I don't know. I couldn't think of another Christian ska band.
It's kind of like
there was an era of Christian rock, I guess.
Yeah. I was going to say, it's kind of like finding a Christian hip hop artist. Like, it's an odd combination. I'm not saying they don't exist. I'm saying, to me, it seems strange.
And we get to Google. We got to check that out. And there is a Google Christian hip hop gospel rap.
Okay, this I've seen videos on YouTube of like elderly people being like, "Jesus is my boy. He's from my hometown."
Exactly. And I almost felt like that was a parody.
It isn't. That's the sad thing.
Oh wow, it's not. I'm thinking of the same one you are. I know I am.
Yeah,
but that's real.
It seems real. You ever hear of Poe's Law?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Poe's Law. If you don't know definitively, and it's on the internet, it could be legit or it could be satire.
So I'm going to... You know what? It's more fun to think it's real, actually.
It really is.
Yeah, it's not as fun to think that it's all made up, unfortunately. That's actually ridiculous.
Yeah. And I mean, no if that's... You know, if you're a Christian, you like Christian hip-hop or whatever, more power to you. It's not my thing.
Hey, me either, you know, and this is, in no way are we, as anybody, passing judgment, but I had no idea. Like, literally, just listen to this. Holy hip-hop has enjoyed some crossover acceptance.
Triple H, nice.
Yeah. Well, if you're getting on, if you want to go on to, abbreviations here and like that, one of the early accepted artists were DOC, Disciples of Christ. That rules. Yeah, apparently, and I guess it looks like actually a huge hip-hop artist actually did team up with Kanye West for Jesus Walks.
That makes sense, yeah.
Wow, DMX, Walk With Me Now, and You'll Fly With Me Later. Did DMX really have a Christian phase?
It's crazy enough that I believe it.
Because I know he did have some legal issues. Oh, actually, under legal issues on the DMX page, it's actually 98 to 99, then 2000 to 05, then 08 to 11, then 13, then 15, then 17. He's had a good run. He really has. It's tax fraud is the most recent one they got him on now. It's terrible.
Yep.
And I mean, it looks like even before that, he's got a rap sheet.
A rap sheet. Sorry, I had to.
Rap sheet. Yeah, like I know, right?
Yeah,
I'm the 5-0. No, he's
what he should have done with his taxes there is invest in Bitcoin instead.
He really should have. Yeah. And from what I'm hearing, this Bitcoin is. Can you claim?
So Bitcoin is it's another currency. Okay.
Yeah. Like, I gotta put ignorance because I'm gonna go back to last week and say this is a shout out to our pal here at Unit Radio, Matt N. out there in Radio Land. He did reach out and he asked about Bitcoin. So I actually did bring in what I feel is the closest thing that I have to a Bitcoin expert.
I am by no means an expert, but I do work in a Bitcoin mine in Labrador. I'm not sure how specific I'm allowed to be to the general public, but
you can be that specific.
Yeah.
I guess you're working that much, I suppose.
Yeah. But yeah. Long story short, Bitcoin, it's just like any other currency. It was actually challenged through the Supreme Court because it's a decentralized currency, and where it's not regulated, they were like, can we even use this as a legal tender? And the court decided, yes, you can. But the really interesting thing to me is just the exponential growth of the value of the currency, because
it's volatile from what I've seen, you know.
It can be volatile, but at the same time, like, it dropped there a couple weeks ago because China said that they're not allowing any initial coin offerings, which like Facebook had their IPO, their initial public offering, like 5 years ago.
Okay. Bitcoin
similar
having its public offering?
Well, cryptocurrency is the term.
Okay.
So there's
because there
Bitcoin.
Are banks, I guess, that operate under
I don't know for sure, but I don't
actually
think
feel
so.
ancient talking about this. This is the first time I've ever felt like I actually feel like a senior citizen.
Well, like
listening to this.
there's all kinds of cryptocurrencies. So there's Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin. Those are the three main ones that I'm familiar with right now. If you're a big meme fan, you can get Dogecoins. Dogecoins, like the wow such currencies type of Dogecoins.
What's a Dogecoin to a Bitcoin?
It's not very much.
Not very much.
It's
no.
like the penny stock.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
Last I checked,
Okay.
I don't follow that one very close.
all right. So you're not. Yeah, this is not a.
The fact that
Bitcoin.
it exists is just that makes me happy. You know.
Well, this is it. I mean, and to that, I guess really what I've got to check out here is we've got to check out what are some more recent. So, like, say, like, what's a one Bitcoin to a Canadian dollar right now?
It should be about $5,000 to $6,000, I believe.
Oh my! Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That is $5,221.51. And you take a look at the chart to the right here. Yeah, it's been quite a climb.
That huge upswing. I started this job the end of January, and I was like, let's see how much it's trading at. I was curious. You know,
Sure.
I had heard of Bitcoin. I knew a little bit about it, but
not enough to. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was trading at around 11 to maybe 1,400 Canadian. It was like low to middle, like teens, basically, of hundreds of dollars. That's a very bad description, but I'm sure.
No, I get it. 'Cause I mean, in the sense of a fraction of a Bitcoin, you
Yeah.
have to be talking in hundreds of dollars, like a half a Bitcoin
Yeah.
or a point.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Or
I'm getting what you're saying. Yeah.
all right, okay, all right. As long as
Yeah.
I'm.
Hopefully, we're not losing people who are listening, but
I think I'm following. If I'm following you, they should be following you.
okay. But yeah, it was volatile for a while. But if you look, like, just Google Bitcoin to Canadian dollar, there's a little graph there, and there's a huge upswing the past like 8-9 months.
Yeah.
It
looks like ever since the early 20. I mean, it's gone up. It went
Yep.
to a high of about 4,000.
Oh no, it
And
went.
dipped, and then it's gone up.
Oh, okay.
Almost towards 6,000 again.
Yeah, I believe it did hit 6,000.
Wow.
And then, like, basically the minute it hit 6,000, people were like, sell, sell, sell. You know.
Of course. Yeah.
'Cause,
I mean.
you know.
I mean, at this point, yeah. I mean, I feel like when it does hit a certain plateau like that, like there is a point where people eventually say, like, I have to sell on this cryptocurrency. Like for me, that's why I stay out of this kind of thing. Like I don't have the heart for it. I don't have the stomach for it.
I know just enough to be dangerous, I think. But like I bought my first bit of cryptocurrency, I think the day before China was like, we're not allowing it, and everything dropped like 10 to 20%. And I was like, well, that kind of sucks, but at the same time, it's only like 25 or $50 I put into it.
Okay, sure. All
so
right.
I was like, it's down a lot right now. I should put some more money into it.
Yeah.
And it's gone way up since then.
Yeah, so I
Like-
mean, honestly, it seems like it may be worth your while because it is popular right now. Evidently, I mean, obviously, I was doing, I guess, my brief Bitcoin research, but I didn't realize I should have been looking into Dogecoin too. Apparently, all right, I had no idea.
You know,
This is
like,
nuts.
take this with a grain of salt because, again, I am not an expert. My job is basically IT. I get the computers online. I keep them online. But I can't help but learn a bit of it, you know?
Well, in the meantime, unfortunately, yeah, when you're surrounded by it, you kind of are immersed in it. And to be honest, it seems to be one of those things that it's so convoluted that you kind of have to want to know what it's all about in order to be involved in it. Or maybe I'm just really dumb. That's possible.
I think you're just really dumb.
It's been
that's,
suggested.
That's
It's definitely been suggested. All right, Kyle, we got to thank you for coming in. Seriously, thanks for coming in and sitting down with us. We don't want to keep him much longer because he does have a show to hit. So again, Kyle King, make sure you guys drop on down towards Trapper John's this evening for Jokes at John's at 9 p.m. coming up there. And for those of you who don't, stick around for more Unit Radio. I'm Brad Stevens, and we'll be right back. Thanks, Kyle.
Thank you.
And there with a little bit of Dr. Dog, that is The Rabbit, the Bat, and the Reindeer. Coming in off their, what was, I guess, 2008 release there? Young Philly group. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. My name is Brad Stevens. You are listening to another edition of Unit Radio. Came to the studio this week, actually, and I forgot my pen. So I've borrowed a drumstick pencil that I'm using, a very dull drumstick pencil from here in the studio. So thank you to whomever of the CHMR staff has left this behind, this merciful bounty. The only thing is, it never really dawned on me, I guess, until I held a pencil, that I wouldn't know where right now to find a pencil sharpener if my existence depended on it. Yeah, if the lives of everybody I loved right now, other than the Mun bookstore, I guess, which of course is always available there, usually from Monday to Friday. I believe the extended hours are now over, so back to business as usual. Thank you, of course, to everybody out there in Radio Land for tuning in. A special thank you to Joshua Picco out there. I know Josh is going to make it in there some week. I believe he's out gallivanting, as they say. Is gallivanting a word? Or is it just something I grew up saying? You know, I'm not from here. I'm from just outside the city. I grew up in Bay Roberts. So there's a lot of things that I say that I often wonder, is this a word or is it what I like to call a bayism? And it depends on what bay you're from. Different bayisms come from different bays. And that's what makes Newfoundland English so incredible and so unique. It's why we have a dictionary of it. You know, I've got speaking of Picco, you know, Picco's got a saying, and it's something that he ingrained in me from the first moment that we met. So what he wanted to tell me, and I think everybody out there in Radio Land should listen, what he imparted on me was that if you feels bad, then you should have a wash. And you know what? Honestly, I've carried that with me. Those are simple but powerful words. If you feels bad, have a wash. Yeah. Just let that one sink in. You know, to those of you, of course, who like to tune in for the, the news break, of course, we're gone past. I will get into a little bit of news, of course. I'm particularly curious about a story that only came up late in my evening here. Premier Dwight Ball will use a $500 a plate party fundraiser dinner to announce a timeline for an inquiry into Muskrat Falls. So this is something that they've been talking about, but they weren't necessarily going to try to enact or try to go after until after the project was finished. So we've got this massive multi-year, multi-billion-dollar hydroelectric project, and it's already incredibly behind schedule, I suppose. It looks like actually by the most recent numbers right now, it's expected to cost and come in at an estimated $12.7 billion, and that's including the financing, but that's going to be $5 million more than their initial kind of estimates, So unfortunately, it's tough for me to say. Like, I'm of two minds on something like Muskrat Falls. I look at Muskrat Falls as being, unfortunately, a very expensive but very important thing that we need to do as a province. So if you look back historically, I'm talking historically far back, if you even look in recent history, we've had almost every winter there's been, issues with the Holyrood generator, which obviously needs to be taken offline at this point and has obviously outlived its capacity or its ability to be a primary heating. Got a little pop there. A primary heating source. And that's unfortunate, and it's just that we do need to upgrade. It is going to cost us a fortune, but it is something, building that level and that strength of infrastructure it's something that's very important to us as a province. And yet, in no way, evidently I have no skin in the game, so it's easy for me to talk smack, as it were. But, really when it comes down to it, unfortunately, it's a project that might be a little mismanaged, maybe. Allegedly? Do I have to say allegedly? I'm going to say allegedly. Allegedly, it could be slightly mismanaged. Now, where is the mismanagement coming from? I have no idea. I can't point fingers. I'm certainly not going to point fingers at Nowcor or its contractor Estaldi or the government or it's just it's too easy to just make somebody to blame. There's a lot of factors that caused it to go over budget, that caused the timeline to go on. Obviously, there have been issues and concerns, I'll say, with some of the safety aspects. I know there was a collapse, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, not that long ago. Yeah, absolutely. Concrete collapse there back in 2016. Yeah, so that was... and it was actually right next to the site's powerhouse. So, okay, again, these things could happen anywhere. I'm going to play devil's advocate and say that, absolutely, this is no construction project is going to be without, the potential for injury, loss of life, even just simply an incident like this, a workplace incident where something is destroyed, there's a collapse. If nobody was hurt, it's still a collapse. It's still unsafe. And, unfortunately, like I know to a degree there are a lot of measures taken. And looking through it, it looks like it's since come out as of, say, May of this year. Yeah. Boy, really up-to-date news there. Crown Corporation hired a structural engineering consultant to work with Astaldi. And, yeah, it looks like, it was 500 cubic meters of wet concrete collapsed. Yeah, they call it catastrophic. And it is a little catastrophic. So, I mean, unfortunately, yeah, it looks like they took statements. They actually dismantled some of that original formwork and framework that was put together. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, really, it looks like it was evidences of exposure to high humidity, rain, snow, fungus and mushrooms were growing on lumber. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, when you hear stories like this coming out, when you know that this is a multi-billion, billion with a B, $billion project, it's tough to know what to say, honestly. It's tough to think that sort of workplace health and safety isn't more highly regulated in something like that. Like, I feel like I've worked jobs in the mall where we were more intense about, you had to get a ladder if you were going to do anything above, say, like 3 feet off the ground in some cases. Like that, basically any time you had to reach in any way, we were going to get you a ladder. Even if you didn't really need to reach, but it would be easier for you to have a ladder, you were going to have a ladder. Everything was checked on. We had to do inspections on things that were then sent off to our corporate companies even to make sure that everything's okay. And I can't believe that, I don't know, on a project of this scale, that something like this, or things like this happen. Again, it could happen anywhere, and it could very well be, a matter of an incident, but it is what it is. So I guess, man, on something a little bit lighter here, so I mean, it looks like, I don't know for any of you, anyone, if there's a foodie or anybody who's interested in, the fact that we actually have a pretty cool local culinary scene. Whether you're looking at anywhere from, say, any of Jeremy Charles's restaurants. He's got Raymond's. We've got the Merchant's Tavern, both downtown, with Chef Todd Perrin as well, with Mallard Cottage, just down by Kitty Vitty. And it looks like actually, well, of course, I know him just from his books, from his Netflix series, from his shows, and of CNN, of course, he's best known for, I believe, for Parts Unknown. Celebrity chef Anthony Bourdain actually visited Newfoundland, apparently, just this week, I guess. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. I think I'm supposed to do a top of the hour thing. I don't know. I'm going to do it, and then we're going to talk about Anthony Bourdain. We'll be back in 2 seconds. This is Unit Radio.
This is 93.5 CHMR FM.
Okay. So Anthony Bourdain is in Newfoundland, was in Newfoundland, and just posted just the most baller photo. He looks like such a boss. It's unbelievable. For anybody who wants to check it out, I do recommend Anthony Bourdain on Instagram. It's this beautiful photo, hashtag Newfoundland. He's on a beach with a couple of, looks like, almost like shag carpet chairs, kind of like you'd find in your nan's basement, with a bare rug on a beach, in typical Bourdain style. And of course, actually, rumors were flying, and I'm not going to lie and pretend like I was any stranger to these rumors. I was a part of it. I went to work the next day and I overheard people talking about it, and I brought up that, actually, I've got a friend on Facebook, actually. She was flying home from somewhere in Ontario, and she actually posted a Facebook status the night before about, Anthony Bourdain's really coming because he's on my flight. And I guess she flew in the night before. The only thing I can assume, I guess, is that he probably got whisked, I don't know, right out into the woods, I would imagine. And, good for him. That's awesome. I mean, he wants to see probably some of the more rural areas. He'll probably get out, I'm assuming he's spending a little bit of time with Jeremy Charles. From what I heard, he did spend some time with Todd Perrin as well. Now, it's going to be kind of interesting, actually, to see this take on it, because I've actually seen a couple of small documentaries with, with some local chefs, and they've taken visiting chefs, usually hunting. Hunting's a big one. I don't know for anybody who's familiar with celebrity chef Matty Matheson, Canadian legend. he did a video, I guess, just about a year, 2 years ago with Chef Jeremy Charles and Chef Cumin Han, who was formerly the chef de cuisine at chef de cuisine, je m'excuse, at the Merchant Tavern, and they actually went out to catch Cumin's first moose, catch like with a rope. So Cumin got a license, and yeah, bagged it and tagged it, which is great. I guess he's a visitor here as well. He's not from the province, so this was a huge deal for him. Was super excited to get the permit to be able to go out, and that moose was served. If I'm not mistaken, I might have had a little bit of that moose. I did get to briefly meet Maddie while he was here. Really, really nice guy, absolute sweetheart. And if I'm not mistaken, I know Maddie, of course, has his hands in a little bit of everything. Of course, you can always check him out on Instagram or with Vice as well. I know he did a lot of great videos for their Munchies series. Actually, he taught me how to make a burger. Taught me how to make one of the nicest burgers that I've ever had. If I'm not mistaken, he did open and have his hands initially in a great restaurant for those of you in Toronto, down on 1566 Queen Street West, Parts and Labor. For anybody who wants to check it out, really nice down there. And of course, while I am doing shout outs as well, I do have to give a shout out as well, I guess, to a couple of other chefs that I dealt with. Some of my favorite Jeffs. We'd have Xavier and James. Both of them have since moved on from Merchant Tavern. Have gone on to, I guess I'm not sure their particular roles, but they are, say, running, ipso facto running a restaurant in Montreal, for those of you there, in 1616 St. Catherine Street West. That'd be Campai Garden, sort of a fusion restaurant. It's very interesting. Gotta recommend it, honestly. One of the coolest feeds that I had in years. So I'm going to bring you guys in a little song here. I just feel like I'm name dropping at this point, which is terrible. We're going to take a little dip into some Canadiana for a little while to meet some of my CanCon requirements. And I'm going to play a little Arkells for you. I actually had a friend of mine reach out to me today, a girl that I know from years ago, this great lady by the name of Rebecca Gladney. She's fantastic. And she's actually told me she's apparently expressed interest in starting a radio show here. So I guess she's going to be doing the CHMR training. So for anybody who knows Rebecca out there in Radio Land, send along your encouragement. Get her in studio here. I told her she can always come sit in and be second mic if she wants to check it out and see what it's all about. But pass along your encouragement to her for sure, because I know it takes guts to come in here. Like I've told you before, last episode, I came in here, gosh, I did the training probably four times before I finally started the show. So I'm going to play a little song that she probably introduced me to. This is off the Arkells, I believe, if not their first release, one of their earliest releases, Jackson Square. And this is John Lennon.
Unit Radio is back.
Yo. Thank you so much again for anybody sticking around out there in Radio Land. Again, you found Unit Radio on the dial there on 93.5 CHMR FM. My name is Brad Stevens. Thank you, of course, for everybody who's out there. For the last couple of jams, everybody tuning in there from Jackson Square. Their, I believe, again, sorry if I'm wrong, first release. That was the Arkells with John Lennon. And we had off a little one that I kind of like, actually haven't heard in a while, off of one of their later releases, I believe, Between the Bridges. That was Sloan with Losing California, and bringing us back there from the break. That's a local act, now located out of Toronto. That would be Repartee with Die Before You, the second track off their, I believe, their debut full release. That's All Lit Up. And we are all lit up here for Unit Radio. Thanks again for everybody who's sticking around and listening to me ramble. Thanks again, of course, to Kyle King, of course, coming in earlier. And for anybody out there who's not planning on staying in this evening, make sure you can try to get down again to check out Jokes at John's down at Trapper John's. Started at 9, and it's going to be going there for the next couple hours. Really good talent in the city. A lot of funny faces. Is that a nice thing to say? Funny faces, I guess. Funny voices, funny jokes, funny observations. People are funny. Me, oh my. But, more importantly, it's kind of nice to actually get on stage, to be honest. I tried it about a year ago for the first time, and I keep telling everybody, because I'm like I'm brave and I don't mind getting on stage and I'm comfortable on stage, which I learned is one of the big barriers for a lot of people that keeps them off. It's the fear of being up there with the microphone and your voice is the loudest voice and everybody stops what they're doing to listen to what you're doing. And to be completely honest with you, it's amazing. That sounds so arrogant. What it is honestly, if you can sit in a room and you can tell a story to a group of people, your friends, strangers, your coworkers, if you can sit at work at your desk and you can tell a story and you look and you realize that kind of everybody around you is sort of paying attention and you don't freak out, then you can do stand-up. It's really not that bad. The hardest part is realizing that when you don't get a laugh, you just gotta kind of acknowledge it and own it and move on. But I had something someone pointed out to me, and I never really thought about it like this before. But you kind of have to realize when it's time to call yourself out and when it's time to just keep going. Just keep on going, barrel on over it. Don't wait for the laugh. It's not coming. Nothing's happening. Nobody's laughing. And I mean, it does happen. Like I've had horrible sets. I'm sure pretty much any stand-up comedian out there can tell you that they've had a bad set. Like I had a set once that I just felt like it wasn't going anywhere, and I got one kind of good chuckle at the beginning, and maybe I got a little confident or I got a little cocky about it, and I don't know, it all fell apart. And it was okay, it was fine. But then when I talked to everybody else there that night, it turned out that's how everybody else felt. My set was terrible, it was garbage. I didn't have the audience, like nobody was listening. And it's okay. It's completely okay. I mean, that kind of happens. And I guess maybe I didn't realize it. I guess it was one of those things where I was sort of living, I don't know, I was living ignorantly thinking that the people on stage were just so amazingly confident, which they are, for being able to get up, that they must be on a different level than me. And I didn't realize until I started doing it that they're every bit as introspective as I am. And that's what makes them amazing comedians. Not that I'm an amazing comedian for being introspective. I'm just a weirdo. But they know, especially the good ones, really, really know how to dig deep within themselves and how to kind of just let go of that inhibition that we all have, where we kind of stop our brains from going too far. They really do let their brains go to the weird place. And they have a thought that you or I would have any day. And except what they do is they then take that thought and they attack it from every angle. And, they go around and around and around with it until they've exhausted all options. And there's your material. And out of that, you build something. Or I guess for some people, it's just riffing. And something I've always wanted to try, and this is an approach of, this takes a confident comedian to do this. And it's not something I've ever done. I don't know if I've even really seen anybody do it live, in person ever, not just here, but even professional comedians. But it's comedians who make a controversial statement first, and then they dig themselves out of it. And what they do is they kind of, I guess some comedians refer to it as they attack it from the side. So, yeah, they kind of go at it rather than taking it head on. They kind of try to attack it right from the side and try to do some sort of, just take a different approach and try to look at it a different way. And in that, they try to sort of captivate an audience, and you're really hoping to kind of grab on to something in the human experience or like the subconscious that we all sort of relate to. Maybe something that we all do that we don't realize. And I guess that's kind of what's really the funniest. It's when you latch onto those moments and you say something. Like I used a word once that I can't use in public, let alone on the radio. And I thought I was going to get a sharp reaction. And it got laughs from, almost everybody. Everybody kind of chuckled. And I remember thinking, okay, it's not really what you're saying. You have to remember the context of what you're saying, at the context of the words you're using. You've got to look at everything you're saying, and you've got to cut the fat off your jokes. So there can't be any word or phrasing that you're using that isn't necessary for the punchline. And anything else that you're doing and saying on the way to that punchline is just impeding you to getting to the punchline. It's kind of a cool concept, right? Like, it's like any other piece of art. You've got you have to work at it, and you sort of have to build it up and perfect it, and it goes through drafts. And with stand-up, it's an interesting medium, I guess, because you do just kind of get to try it out over and over and over again. And you can kind of, I know I've seen stand-up acts who've stopped the audience, and they said, that was no good, huh? Like, what? There's a comedian that I listen to who, when he's, working on new specials, he actually runs them in front of crowds. And when he does a joke that completely bombs, he actually stops the show. And he asks the audience, because what he said was most important is that he's writing the jokes, he's delivering the jokes, and in no way can he really step outside of what he's doing to actually stop and listen to what the joke sounds like to somebody else. So that's his number one question is, what is it you think that I'm saying? Because it seems like sometimes, even in watching comedians that I see, they have perfectly good material. And sometimes if something falls flat, it isn't necessarily because the idea isn't funny. It just maybe it's being delivered the wrong way. It's coming across the wrong way. And I've had the same issue with some of my material, where I've delivered a joke that to me, it's real funny, and I've punched it up just the right way. And sometimes, honestly, it's terrible. It gets a big old nothing from anybody within earshot. It's brutal, and it's something you kind of just have to own, and you just have to live with. But I guess the most important thing is really, honestly, being able to take that and work with it. Some people, I've heard of people getting scared of a joke. You don't want to tell that joke because it bombed last time. But conversely to that, I've told the same joke with, different crowds, or 2 or 3 different crowds, and it's really not a huge deal. It always sort of works out in the end. The joke itself might not land immediately, but sometimes you realize it's in the delivery, or sometimes you realize it's in where in your set you deliver it, or sometimes it's just the audience themselves. Bad crowds exist. I went to Just for Laughs, and I talked to one comedian the next day after I saw him at a club, and the club was kind of quiet and weird, but they were doing a filming, and it was odd, and everything felt really forced and a little fake. We were doing kind of weird crowd reaction things, and it didn't feel like a typical show where you go, have a few drinks, loosen up, and leave. And the next day I ran into one of the comedians, and I said, that was great, by the way, last night. You were excellent. And he said, yeah, it was a weird show, though, huh? Weird crowd. I explained to him my perspective. I said, I was in the front row, and we were kind of we kind of had to keep doing laugh cuts, and or people would come out on stage, or they'd say somebody's name, and nobody would come because they wouldn't be ready. They'd still be in their dressing room, and a lot of false starts and stuff. But it was interesting. And, I mean, it's kind of odd. I mean, I've played a lot of music sets, but I feel like I've only really played music sets where the primary purpose of going there was for music. I've never played at bars where you're kind of just the background music, or there's backing music in the same way maybe you might go, I don't know, like in the daytime to a bar. I've only ever done things, I guess, in the evening where it is the event you're coming to is the show. And it's odd because in that way, if the set's really bad, it's really bad and nobody's enjoying it, and people leave, and they just leave, and they're so rude about it, and well, not rude, I mean, you're bad, you stink, and you're garbage trash, and you need to go home and start over, and that's fine. But comedy, everybody's so nice. It's so great. But I'm afraid I'm not going to grow. I'm afraid I won't grow if nobody tells me how terrible I am. Because what if I'm just bad and not funny? I'm sure it would be pretty evident if I was bad and not funny. Okay, so I'm going to start a new... actually, I should give a little thing there. We did have someone listening in earlier, actually, a listener out there in Radio Land, Christian. She actually sent along a message there where we were talking about a roundabouts conversation. First of all, their first comment was that our roundabout's really the riveting conversation of the evening, really. So thank you. Thank you for listening. And she actually let me know during the roundabout conversation there, recently she did see somebody driving in reverse in a roundabout. So that is great. That is good stuff. And I'm sure that's really, that's not unnerving at all. Again, I mean, like we were talking about yesterday, like it can't possibly be any worse than a four-way stop. So, okay, again, I'm going to try something a little bit new this evening. Of course, I want to try to showcase this show. Of course, we showcase this show with, like, say, local music. We do have a lot of great local artists in this city. And for anybody who's tuning into CHMR, or, of course, Unit Radio here with yours truly, Brad Stevens on the old CHMR, there is a lot of great bands here, of past and of present, that I want to kind of showcase some of my favorite bands, say bands that don't currently play, a couple of more current bands, and I just want to play some friends of mine. That's what I'd like to do. Maybe take a little walk down memory lane. So for any of you, of course, have been big fans or attendees of the music scene over the last 10 to 15 years, I'm going to take you on a little walk. I don't have a name for this. I probably should just come up with something. It is the local flavor. So we're going to do I'm going to write that down. Local flavor. And I'm gonna play a few songs here for you tonight. I'm gonna start off actually with a local group. They're from my bay. I grew up with these guys. They're great. In I believe 2004 or 5, they actually won a contest through Alliant, which gave them the opportunity to open for the Bedouin Sound Clash here in St. John's. They actually followed that up with an opportunity where they actually played on the Warped Tour, I believe, on the west coast of the country, if I'm not mistaken, in Vancouver. These guys, of course, haven't played together, I don't think, in years. They may have done a couple of reunion shows here and there, but from their, I believe, only release, their 2006 release, this is... I can't believe I'm playing these guys. This is Rayfield here with something to consider.
Unit Radio is back.
Is, of course, the lovable, but, dear to my heart, and I miss them. That is Make Mean Everything with, of course, Mr. John Conway, Jeff Cook, and Braden Pilgrim there. Welcome back to Unit Radio. My name is Brad Stevens, and thank you to those of you for just tuning in. Thank you even more for anybody who's stuck around all evening. We are rounding off into the final half hour of the evening here. Of course, on my way over here, just before I did meet up with Kyle there, so, I actually did come across quite a crowd with the running room, and I feel like I've got to, at the very, very, very least, address how some feelings I guess I've been having. So I live in the area, I guess, near Churchill Square. Obviously I do really appreciate the need for physical activity. Anybody who's got a zest for life, I can appreciate. That's fine. Truthfully, I can really, really, really relate to anybody wanting to stay in shape, and especially for a lot of the people who are at the running room, it's good to see that they found a group to be physically active with, to get out there, to, just look better, feel better, and just be better. The problem is being better for the running room seems to involve running 3 in a row in the road. And this won't do. Now, the thing is unfortunately, yesterday I happened to see one of them run into traffic, and they almost got hit by traffic. They ran into a crosswalk and without pushing a button, without stopping, just ran, and a car going 50 had to slam on their brakes. And then there was a gang of runners who all stopped and threw their arms in the air and yelled and were upset and angry. And all I could think, watching it the whole time, was that this is somebody just who ran into the road. Like, I watched you walk into traffic. Like, when you're a 5-year-old kid, one of the first things your parents tell you when they send you out on your own is to make sure always to look both ways before you cross. And I'm watching fully grown adults turn into fully grown babies and just attacking people and yelling at people and running in front of people and passively aggressively waving. But you know what? I'm a big man. I was able to walk away from the situation and say, you know what? Why am I angry? And I stopped and I thought about it for a while. So I really put a lot of thought into it. And what it came down to me is that I'm not angry. I'm afraid. I'm afraid that someone's going to run in front of my car because I saw somebody do it. And every time I just drive in that area, it's all I can think about. And I have to drive by there every day, basically. So it's all I think about is that I'm going to come around a corner and someone with 4 miniature bottles of water on a belt around them is going to run in front of me and roll off my windshield. And I'm terrified of that thought. So I just want to, more so than anything, I don't want to make, I'm done with angry, beleaguered rants about runners. I've yelled myself out about runners, but what I do need to say is I want to make a plea to the runners of the city. Please be careful. Please don't run in front of my car. Please, 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 pretty please, with sugar on top, don't run in front of my vehicle near Churchill Square. I appreciate and wish to validate your desire to run, and for whatever reason, to run in rows of 3 and 4. Single file is fine, but it's a social thing, and I get it. But my car, and I don't want to hit you, so that would be great. So I just, I wanted to at least make it some sort of a, make it seem like I'm willing to meet you halfway. I don't think it's your fault. I don't think you're even doing anything wrong, but you make me nervous. And at the end of the day, my anger really is my fear of being the person that hits you at a crosswalk, And that was the worst. If that guy had hit those runners at a crosswalk, there's 30 of them, and there's one of him, and I'm there, but, I'm just one guy. But I'm really glad everyone was okay in that situation, and I got to walk away, and they all got to walk away. So, of course, anybody just sticking around there, of course, I do want to say thank you. I just did a little section of the show that I just made up off the top of my head that maybe I'll never do again. But it's called Local Flavor. So for Local Flavor there this week, I actually brought out 4 songs there. The first there that, of course, I did preface was from their, I believe, their first and only release. That was Something to Consider from the local band Rayfield. Thank you, of course, to them for putting their album here in the CHMR studio years ago and reminding me even that it was here, which is amazing. That's great. Of course, then with Make Me and Everything from their second release, Gamma Rays. I believe that was an EP for a Battle of the Bands here, actually just before their untimely, I won't say demise, I'll say their untimely work stoppage. Let's say that. Let's just say they're on strike. That was Hungry from Make Me and Everything. Coming up after that, I had it was Pizza Pie from Monza's self-titled release. And then to close it out again there from Make Me and Everything's self-titled release, actually, that was Stay Low. I really miss those guys, actually. I really do. It was a great band. Jeff is a fantastic songwriter, an amazing guitarist. Just an incredible mind to kind of pick sometimes, and there really was nobody quite like him. I'm saying that like he's gone forever. He is gone. He moved home, moved away then, and so we miss him dearly. But to Jeff, if you ever want to come visit, we're always welcome to have you here at Unit Radio. I'd love to have you in studio. You're going to make you bring a guitar, though, so you can help me fill 2 hours. And then, of course, you had John Conway on bass as well. Fantastic bassist. His own way, second to none, really. He's incredible. His rhythm is incredible. And the two of them worked really well together in writing a lot of what they refer to and what I am referring to, because I don't know what it means. I guess I should probably look it up, but they call it math rock. So what I can only assume about math rock, I guess, is that it's just, so it's rhythmically complex experimental rock. Okay, so that makes sense, yeah. So it's math rock. So you're playing with different time signatures, I'd assume. And so like King Crimson is a math rock band, allegedly. Although I bet if I said that to a King Crimson fan, that would be like very, very up for debate. So I miss them. And of course, then Braden Pilgrim, fantastic, incredible drummer. I feel like Trump here. He's great. He's an amazing drummer. You've never seen anything like him. He's amazing. He's great. And honestly, like, he's one of those people where he is such a heavy, heavy rock drummer that, again, there's really nobody quite like him. That I've heard him play along with things. Like, it was an old roommate of mine, and I've heard him play along with albums. I heard him play along with bands he liked, songs he liked. And at the end of the day, it seemed like he still had his own style. Even the songs that he was writing with Make Me and Everything, there was nobody that could write it and put the fills in quite like he did. And he was so meticulous. Like, he would really, really work something out to make sure that, like I said with stand-up comedy earlier, you cut the fat. You trim that down so that every single note that you're delivering is a necessary note in that song. And that's what I used to feel like when I would listen to Make Mean Everything songs. It was a lot of fun. It was an incredible band to watch. So Make Mean Everything there for Jeff, John, and Braden. I miss the heck out of you guys. You guys were a great, great, great group. I got to thank, of course, anybody who has been tuning in. We did have some return listeners there, it looks like, from last week, actually. Let me take a look. We do have, actually, a new listener, first-time listener. This would be, I've got him affectionately saved here as Trissy Boogie. So Trissy Boogie is first-time listening, first-time calling. I actually wouldn't let him call. That's fine. You don't need to hear him. That's okay. But we'll deliver the message here. He's just wondering where you stood on the sofa versus Chesterfield versus couch debate. All right, so is this a debate? All right, I mean, I don't know. I feel like I got to do some research. Versus couch versus Chesterfield. Okay. All right. Well, first off, Tristan, I mean, what about Davenports? Okay, what about a settee? Okay. What about a daybed? Is a daybed a couch or is it a daybed? When is a couch not a daybed and is only a couch? Or when is a sofa, like, if we're saying, what do I prefer, then what's the difference between? Because to me, a couch, Chesterfield, sofa, kind of all encompass. But now, I mean, I'm going to let Google do the work for us here. So a traditional couch is referred to as a chaise, rather than a couch by some. I've never heard anybody refer to it as a chaise. C-H-A-I-S-E. That's probably French. That sounds very French. Sofas, on the other hand, are the common furniture found in many people's living rooms. They're upholstered. They have two arms, a uniform back, and they seat more people than a couch. So, wait a second. So, based on this, is a sofa, like if I'm thinking of a 3-man unit, is that a sofa and the love seat is a couch? Like is that the chaise? Or is it just the singular chair? Because chaise, if I'm not mistaken, is chair in French. Wow. Tristan, I really don't know. I'm going to have to come back to you on this one. What is a Chesterfield couch? It's a large couch with rolled arms, okay, with the deep button tufting, and nail head trim. Okay, so the Chesterfield, the typical Chesterfield as we quintessentially know it, may in fact be a sofa or a couch. Huh. You sent me down a rabbit hole, sir. And yeah, he said something. He said, "Your show's great. Keep up the good work." Thanks, Tristan. I really appreciate that. So thanks for chiming in there. I mean, that's a good takeaway for me there. If I can be real corporate there, I gotta see where I stand. So that's something I feel like I can get back to you about there, Tristan, for another week. But the couch versus sofa versus Chesterfield debate rages on. It sounds like. And speaking of raging on, I'm as much as I'd like to continue raging on with you folks here, my time does draw near here for Unit Radio. What I do want to say, of course, is as we reach that 10 o'clock hour, thank you, of course, to everybody for tuning in, and thank you to everybody for interacting with the show here. I'll be back next week to settle this obviously very intense debate. Maybe I can do some sort of pre-recorded interview with the infamous Trissy Boogie of British Columbian lore. And, more than anything, I hope you come back next week. So if there's something you like, if there's something you don't like, feel free to reach out to me or the folks here at CHMR. Let us know, and I'm going to try to make this show as good as it can be. I'm doing my best. But more than anything, again, my name is Brad Stevens. This has been Unit Radio, and come back again next time, Thursday, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. for another 2-hour adventure, and we're going to try to see, pretty please, if we don't get that old Trissy Boogie, we're going to get Josh, and I've been looking forward to bringing Josh in. Josh was unfortunately couldn't make it with us this week, and again, thank you to Kyle King there. For those of you, of course, it's a little late right now. If you are in the downtown area, you're driving, just pull your car over wherever, it doesn't matter, it's fine, and get out legally, park it, and get out and go to Trapper John's for as long as possible and just go see some amazing stand-up comedy tonight. Again, for another episode of Unit Radio, I am Brad Stevens. Thank you so much for listening. To close this out tonight, we've got from Slow Motion Pictures, this is Sober as a Judge by the lovable Tom Coombs.